Hello everyone, welcome. So I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker, Brittany Fisher. Brittany is a 2024 alum of Sneer College of Business. During her senior year, she wrote Moving Through Challenge with the support of the Ferrell for Corporate Innovation. A lifelong writer and advocate for personal growth, Brittany is passionate about helping fellow young adults unlock their potential through creative reflection. Brittany also served on the Student Executive Committee for this conference in 2023 and as the Student Co-Chair in 2024. She also currently serves as a City Ambassador for the Great DC Penn State Alumni Entrepreneurs Network. The title for the Brittany's talk is Write Your Future Using Creative Expression to Unlock Your Potential. Please help me welcome Brittany.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. I am Brittany Fisher. I am an author and a graduate of Penn State University, and I'm so excited to be back here today. As he just introduced, this conference is near and dear to my heart as I used to work on it when I was a student on the steering committee for about 2 years. So I've been used to being in your guys' seats, and now I'm in the front as a speaker. So just as a personal note, this is a really awesome experience, and I'm so glad you guys are able to join me. So just to go into a little bit more about myself as an introduction. So I did graduate last year from Smeal College of Business. I studied corporate innovation and entrepreneurship there, which was a great way for me to foster both my business desires, to learn about other people's businesses, and learn and foster my own business through moving through change. So through that major, I created Moving Through Change, which is my book. It's a guided reflection journal, which I specifically designed for people like your guys' selves who are young and going through so many transitions and ebbs and flows of your guys' lives that a lot of us don't take the time to sit and really introspect on how we're moving and how we want to grow from all of the different new situations that we are being put into. So for the context of how this relates into our talk today, a part of my journal is to incorporate creativity and how we think about our own personal growth and how we self-reflect on our own development. So today I want us all to think about how we can incorporate creativity on our own personal improvement, and we're going to work through some exercises and examples of what that may look like for us. So I'm going to start off with a prompting question. And people online, don't think you're safe. I'm going to get Matt to get some of your guys' responses as well. But today is meant to be a workshop, so I want you guys to be involved, engaged. I may cold call some people. I may ask all of you online for your responses. And I want us all to be moving and thinking together. And I'm going to be starting off with some context and some foundational ideas that we can all begin from. And then after that, we're going to be working together and kind of utilizing some of the tools that we learned to input into our own introspection. So I want to start us off with a question of how are you currently creative in your daily routine? I'd love to know. Yep.
Well, I have a creative practice. I'm like an artist and painter. I like to draw, so I dedicate at least 30 minutes a day to that. So.
Yeah, and remind me your name?
Stephanie.
Stephanie? Yeah, so Stephanie, I think, is giving us an example of what a lot of us typically think of as creativity. You know, painting, putting pen to paper, and that is, you know, art is creation, it's creativity, and that is, we all think of it for a reason. I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts on how they're creative. Yep.
It's like putting an outfit together every day.
I love that one. That is a really great show of creativity. Why do you think that's creativity to you?
I feel like just like every day is different, and like I kind of put fits together depending on my mood. So like I day it's like a different version of like, style.
Yeah. And your name?
Fun.
Fawn? Yeah, and so Fawn's bringing in the kind of soft aspect of creativity that may be within our day-to-day routines, that of what color blouse do I put on? How is that evoking my emotions that I want to be exuding for others and myself today? That's a atypical form of creativity that we all go through every single day, but we might not be immediately thinking about when prompted this question. I'm curious, is there any online responses, Matt?
Not at the moment.
All right. Well, if anyone jumps in, I prompt everyone online to, if you have anything throughout this talk, just throw it in the chat, and Matt will be your voice. So yeah, I love that. We got kind of of creative action that have a lot to say about what you're trying to do, what output you're trying to get from it. And so creative expression is the process of combining both of these actions together. When you are actively using these unique forms from creative action to process your personal emotions, thoughts, and ideas that eventually others will see, and also you will be able to analyze yourself to learn more and grow from. So again, I note these aren't mutually exclusive, but for the purposes of today's talk, we're just going to put them in these three buckets. So creative expression asks us to look at our box. So I'm going to use the metaphor of a box in order to describe the differences between these, because when we are in self-expression, that is our box that we give to people. When we are in a conversation, me and Fawn are talking, I say, hey, I'm an author, I wrote this book. I'm self-expressing and giving her my box. She might give me her box back and say, hey, I'm a student here, I'm looking to starting a business, and she passes the box back and forth. So a lot of our typical discussions, conversations in a day revolve that box being passed back and forth. And we don't think too much of it. It's kind of just, we identify with the box that we pass. Whereas creative action, you can visualize that you're standing, and then you're creating a box. So this box that I'm creating could or could not have something to do with myself, but it's the act of me making this box that now I'm able to say, hey guys, look, I have a box. And creative expression in this metaphor that we're using asks us to step outside of our box and describe it. When we describe it, we're better able to analyze what that box is, where it's coming from, and how to give it back to somebody else or ourselves later on. So in this metaphor, we're able to kind of see how all of those boxes are utile, they're useful for us for different aspects of our life, but creative expression is the best method in order for us to get more wisdom and to analyze and effectively better understand what our boxes are, how we want to think about them, how we want to talk about them, and eventually how we want to pass them back out into the world. So when we look at our box in creative expression, it has these two actions. We're looking at it. So when I'm going and I'm saying I have this idea or this thought, and I step outside and now I'm looking at this subject of the subject at hand, I can look at it and say, what are my current ideas and belief about this box? What does it look like? How am I presenting this to the world? Is the box really beat up because I use it all the time? Is this idea something that I've had since I was young, for example? Is it one that it's premature and it's new and I'm just trying to get my grounds around what that looks like? Or what does this evoke in me? If the box is, the major I'm looking at going into, it could be, what are my current beliefs about business? How do I fit into this belief of what is and what is not possible for starting a business, for example? When we present it, how do I talk about starting a business with others that I'm around? Am I feeling very stressed when I think about starting my own business? Do I feel motivated and inspired? am I a little worried because it seems like a really big challenge and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to have the knocks for it? These are all introspections we can gain from that first aspect of creative expression, which pulls on that self-expression of introspection, of looking at the box. Now the secondary is to describe the box in a new way. So now that we've asked these questions, we're standing there and we're looking at this box, my belief about business and how I fit into starting a business. Now I want to create something new from these beliefs. How can I describe all of these answers I just got in a new way creatively? How can I describe my worry about the challenges of being an entrepreneur through the creative language and flowery descriptions of a poem? How does that change if I describe these emotions evoked in a short story versus a painting? There's wisdom from all of these different perspectives and methods and structures that we can gain when we are describing this box in a new way. So when we're going through creative expression, it's not a one size fits all. Some subjects evoke a certain je ne sais quoi of, I'm sure Stephanie is like, I can't describe what I'm feeling, but I could picture it in my mind. It's red and it's blue and there's green dots thrown in there. And I can't describe it, but that's what I'm feeling right now. That's creative expression. And then you could look at that painting and say, those green dots, that is the flecks of hope that I feel, that they're interspersed between all of this dramatic changes and efforts that will be undertaken by me starting this business. But those green dots, that's what I'll look at every day and say, focus on the green dots. Don't focus on the big brush strokes. And that is the process of creative expression that can broaden our understanding of ourselves and what we can get from our own self-reflection. And all of that is through these two amalgamations of the ends of the spectrum. So self-expression and our creative actions. Now, why this makes the difference really is when we expand our communication options, we expand our pathways. When we're typically communicating, it's an A to B conversation. There's not a lot of thought process. You might say, how do I want to phrase it, or what's my tone of inflection in order to best get my point across? And those are all, valuable inputs that can be considered. But when we are trying to express ourselves through a painting, through a medium that maybe we're not super familiar with, like through a graphic design piece or through a dance form, all of those challenge our brain to physically think outside ourselves and to find different communication pathways that can evoke different ideas. And how I want to describe this, oh no, okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself there, but so just know that all of these methods are necessary, and me having an A to B conversation is very valuable because I'm able to plainly express the thoughts that are going through in my head. But the value of creative expression is that sometimes that's not enough. And in order to gain more ideas from yourself to input either for your own personal growth or development, implementing some different forms and structures is a really great tool in order to improve your own self-awareness. So how can we practice this creative expression? Some examples of creative expression are writing and making. Writing, there's a lot of ways to write. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a writer. I love poetry, so that's the one I put first. And I think that there's a lot of different options, though. And like I said before, creative action and creative expression, all of these are not one size fits all. So one may evoke more emotional connection or just might feel more aligned than another, and that's totally fine. So if the actions or the exercises that we do later today aren't wow, that really sunk to my soul, I really encourage you. I'm giving us examples and exercises from my favorite forms today, but I would love you to, or I can impel you to look into these other forms to encourage it as well, because one of these may align better with just your personal preferences. But yeah, so poetry, you can look at what rhymes you're putting together, how the sound of the stanzas flow, and how the quickness and the meter tie into your relaxation or anxiety about the situation. In songs, I know we were just talking about music. Music is a great communicator for many of our different emotions and expressions that sometimes you can't get through day-to-day conversation. So music is another one, whether it be the score of the actual instrument or the lyrics and the lyricism between both of them. That is also a great way that you can, think about some of your subjects and put pen to paper. Narratives, also, writing stories. One that I've done in the past that's very interesting is to write a story about yourself in that situation. You kind of imagine yourself as a character, and you kind of implement and describe some of the things that yourself has or will do. And then you're able to look at what words do you use to describe how you acted or want to act in that situation. Who are the supporting characters that are around you? What is the setting? How is the setup and all of the crescendo of the exposition of the plot play out? And how does that, when you read it through, what do you take from it? A lot of the times when we look at life situations we've been through on paper, we're able to analyze it and introspect a lot differently than when we're the one standing in the shoes of the situation. So this is another great area for creative expression as well. Letters we'll get to, but writing a letter to your future self, kind of evaluating, and there's a degree of imagination and creativity that goes into imagining where you're gonna be in 2 to 5 years, and picturing that life and how you would ask for advice, what advice that person would give you, guidance you would give them, or even if you wanted to write a letter to your past self as well, that's a great way for expression where you're able to say, hey, this is where you were and this is where I am now, and this is how I would describe what's happened. Yeah, as I see you, you're nodding. Would you personally get something out of that one?
I've tried that one before, and it really made me feel like I'm comforting that kind of inner child of mine, of what, acknowledging what I've been able to do in the past. So I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah. We have one at the end where we'll be writing a letter to our future selves. And letters are like a window to the soul because they capture a moment in time that you're able to look back at. And if written well, you're able to look and almost see a snapshot in your life. And that's a forever record, a report that you'll be able to reference in years' time and be able to kind of compare and contrast how you've grown and changed since then. And then, of course, I had to put it on there because I wrote a freaking book on it, but journaling prompts, not only just answering journaling prompts, whether it be guided or not, making your own journal prompts is also really good. So I've done that for, I don't know, if there's like something that I'm working on, I'll make a journaling prompt so that in the future I can kind of come back and reference how I've grown in that aspect. So being creative in how you ask questions to yourself and answer questions of others, that's a part of creative expression as well. So all of those are kind of in the literature lens of it, but there's also making. So as Steph said, like drawings and paintings obviously is very artistic and can involve a lot of creative expression when you create it with the intention of examining your internal concepts as well. So films and videos, I know we are in the era of TikTok and YouTube and Netflix and all of the abundance. So just know that can also be creative expression. There's a lot of new ways to edit, and I'm not a video person myself, but there's a lot of ways to edit and add additions to videos that, whether that be a voice track of you describing how you're feeling over the video of the hike that you just went on, and how the sun hit your face and it made you all feel alive. Those are an example of how you could create a video that kind of is a way for you to look outside yourself in that situation. In addition, collages. I know vision boards are really big. Honestly, I should be a vision board person, but I'm not, unfortunately. I'm a really visual person with the arts, but something about photos on a collage just never was my thing. But I know a lot of people that love vision boards and making collages, so I would definitely encourage that one. Creating clippings of basically other people's work is a great way to kind of be creative using other people's pre-existing assets. And then dances. Dances, I know you can jump around. I do hear stress is stored in the hips. So if you're ever really stressed out, I would encourage you to shake them a little bit, because that is another good way to just kind of let out maybe a lot of bodily feelings as well. If you're really stressed out, usually really tense in your shoulders and in your center. So maybe dancing and creating video, that would be another one. Dancing and creating videos of combining, where you'd be able to show others kind of how you're feeling in that moment in a different way than just plainly telling them. And then physical forms. So sculptures, making posters, or there's no end to the amount of things that you can make. Making clothes, fashion, my brother makes clothes and all these crazy sculptures and stuff, and that's his way of expressing. So that's another great one. There is no end to the amount of creative things that you can do. And so this is just a short list of ones that I thought might be the most prevalent for the purposes of this talk. But definitely I implore you guys to just keep your minds open and just see what connects and aligns with you and what you want to do. So why is this important? Many of us are used to expressing ourselves in the typical ways. I've kind of talked about this at length already, but when we only express ourselves in the typical way, we are missing out on how we can step outside and gain more insights from the thoughts that we're communicating without introspection. So this is a fun and interactive way to kind of do the hard work, quote unquote, of thinking about yourself and thinking about your growth and development in ways that is interactive and feels purposeful. So it may leave us missing out on unique self-understanding as well. So this is the one that I wanted to get to before when I was skipping around. But this is how I want us. If you take anything from this talk today, I want it to be, I hope the people online can see it, but I want it to be this slide, because this is really the crux of creative expression, is this visual that I made. When you think of a typical thought pattern of us passing our box back and forth, this is what I was describing of I have this idea and then here's my box, this is the idea. There's no sort of questioning. It's really just I'm vocalizing and communicating the idea that I have from my mind. And creative expression, where that differs, is I say, this is what I'm thinking. I am holding the thought in my mind, and through a creative outlet, I now have all these different ideas and takeaways that I did not have from this. So I'm able, when I say, we use the example of, I want to start a business. So it's I have the idea. I want to start a business. I tell Fawn, that's my idea. I want to start a business. Creative expression would say I want to start a business. Why? I'm now looking at this box and What around me is making me think that that's something that I want to do? And I'm going to put this in a poem. So I have 3 stanzas and 12 lines maybe to describe to myself why I want to start a business. And then maybe that gets me thinking about, well, if I only have 12 lines, what words? That means that all my words count a little bit more than when I'm just talking about it. So I should probably use some words that like connect with me, right? I love being my own boss, like that leadership aspect of it. So I want leader. I want to be a leader. Okay, so now I'm not just starting a business, I know that I want to be a leader. Okay, well, if I'm talking about leadership, I want it to be really strong words because I want to be someone who you can look to and somebody wants to follow, right? So maybe I talk about leading a team. And maybe I talk about how the people around me, I'm lifting them up. Title, lift them up. Together we stand. I look and we're together. In tandem, we're able to see a vision greater than ourselves. This is what I aspire. This is what I dream. Boom. How many more ideas did we just get from that? Then I want to start a business. This is the power of creative expression, guys. This is why I love it so much, because genuinely and this is what happens, like this is how I create my poems, is I'm literally just like, I have this idea, this is what I'm thinking, and just ask yourselves, like you're in first grade, the 5 questions. Who's with me? Where am I when I'm having this? Where, like, have I seen this before? How is this impacting me? How is this important? Why do I want to do this now in the future? I don't know. I think there's another one in there that I missed somewhere, but you get the point. If you just ask yourself these 5 questions and then decide I'm going to instill this in a painting, in a piece of art, in a sweatshirt, whatever you choose, literally it's like the world is your oyster for creative expression. You are able to get so many more ideas and intellect into how you're feeling and what your thought process is behind that idea than you are when you're just going from A to B. So yeah, if you want to take anything from this, take this slide, because I believe it to my core that you're able to be benefited so much from having more ideas, because just the more information, like think about it, like I'm in data analytics now, and the more we're always trying to get more data points, and the more information you have about yourself will give you more influences to how you make choices and show up for yourself in the future. And at the end of the day, the more information you have about yourself, the better choices you're able to make to create the future that you're desiring. So now we get to create it. We get to enact it a little bit. We're going to start with a few examples, just because we're going to first make a poem, and then we're going to do a drawing, and then if we have time, do a letter as well. And then hopefully this all gives us with a couple artifacts that we're able to draw back to that we can reflect in the future on. So we're going to start with some examples of a poem, just so that we're all kind of baseline and can work together for this one. And just as a blanket context for what poetry is, basically poetry is a free form way of writing. And by all means, I'm not a literary professor or anything. This is just kind of my glossed over description of what it is. But yeah, so it's basically a special mix of different meters. So meter is basically like how quickly or slowly it's either read out loud or mentally you read the the lines, and then rhymes. So rhymes are when two words sound the same. So a lot of people think that poems have to rhyme, but I'm here to say that they don't. They don't. A lot of the times, the best ones don't rhyme, but have a good pace to them. So if you want to make it rhyme, go ahead, but don't feel like you have to, because that's definitely not the case. And they can be, poetry is very interesting because you can have them be very structured at times. Like a sonnet, for example, is very structurally 13 lines with a certain AA, BB, CC rhyme pattern. But other ones, there's just like long verse free-form poetry as well, which is essentially just writing however you want to write and then calling it poetry with like certain aspects to it. So yeah, that's where it can be whatever you want it to be. And I'm sure like when you guys break, you can look up some examples as well, like online, or talk to each other, and I'm going to come around and help as well. We can talk through and brainstorm a little bit. But yeah, for the purposes, that's kind of what poetry is. And I want us to analyze this very popular poem by Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken. It seemed very apropos for kind of the topic at hand today. And then we're going to go through and we're going to do this diagram for it. So we're going to go through as a group and basically figure out how he gained and improved his thought process by using creative expression opposed to like plain language. So if we go back, I'm going to go ahead and read it for all of us, give us a couple minutes to reflect, and then we're going to come back together as a group to talk about it. The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So with this, just think. What was his thought? If he were to said it, how would he have said it? And then how was it impacted by the creative expression? I'll flip back and let you guys ruminate for a second. All right, what are we thinking? What was Robert trying to say in plain language? Yep.
Choices, or that he was forced into, like, it's probably like what he should have picked, more like life decisions that he picked, but he still remains of stuff that he couldn't take.
Yeah. He was at a crossroads. He was in the woods. He's like, wow, I have two roads that I could take. And he could have just said that. I had to make a choice. And I made a choice. Period. That could have been it. Yeah.
How to not let FOMO stop you from moving forward.
I love that. The people online didn't hear, she said how to not let FOMO keep you from moving forward, right? Yeah, so basically he's like talking about, he's like, yeah, I'm not sure which one's gonna be the better way, but I'm just gonna make a decision and stick with it. So he could have just said, but essentially he just made a choice. But what are some other ideas that you guys read from this, or maybe ways he described it that is improved or more informative than I had to make a choice? We look at the line, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim. He's saying when he's thinking, so he's challenging himself, he's just describing what the choices that he had to make. He's saying, yeah, actually, it looked like it was grassy and it wanted wear. Nobody's been on that one. Maybe I think that one would be better, or could have, but he doesn't actually end up choosing that one. He ends up choosing the road less traveled. So what that says that he just learned that, about his decision making. When he's looking at things, he's evaluating the elements that comprise them, what it looked like, what the grass was, how many other people have done it before, how did that influence his. Obviously, it was the road not taken or less taken, so it didn't end up influencing his final decision. But rereading this back, he's like, yeah, technically that was the better choice, or more other people have done it. Might be a more accurate way of saying that. But that's a learning, other than this is the choice that I made. And with that example, any other kind of like ideas that you think that he learned from this? Yeah.
Half right. He says, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Choices build upon choices. You might not get the chance back.
Yeah. So you see him introspecting about the future, his thought process. So you get more into his process of influence as well. He's saying, man, not only did I make this choice, but this will probably influence other future choices that I'm going to have to make. And he's okay with that. He says, I doubt I'm ever going to come back. And he says, telling this with a sigh, that has made all the difference. He doesn't say whether it's good or bad. You can sense this kind of content uncertainty within him, where he had to make a choice. He evaluated, and you can see his thought process between both the choices that he had to make through his description of the trees and the path. And also, he's evaluating his future perspective as well, what that impact might be. But he's okay with that. All of these emotions and ideas and wisdom he can return to and read this poem in 5-10 years' time and reflect on what that difference was, whether or not that other choice was actually the better choice. He could, sit there and then reflect and journal on this poem and say, yeah, like that made all the difference. I'm here and I did all this. I went down the road less traveled, and that was what I was supposed to do. Or it made the difference, and heck, I should have listened to what the other people were saying, and I should have gone down the other road. This is the importance and like the greatness of creative expression, guys, is that all of this is just because he thought about it, he stepped outside his box, he described it in a new form, and now he's able to reflect and gain wisdom from it way more than he could if he were to just say, I made a choice, and move on with his life. Looking at the time now, I think I'm going to skip the second one, but as you can see, we just kind of talked about this, but you can see it on the diagram of the A to B. He said, I had to choose between two paths. I chose the one less traveled. That could have been the plain way of saying it. But instead, he said, I'm uncertain of which path. And he learned about the features he noticed, how he'll talk about in the future, and the impact of his choice. And he's able to see the whole decision process that led him to the road less traveled. And I'm going to skip past, that's one of my poems, but I think I want to give us some more time for the activities. So now I'm going to turn on you guys. So we're going to make a poem. Woohoo! Gets energized. I love it. I have some pen and paper and everything, so I'll come around and hand it out. But essentially, I'm going to give us 10 to 15 minutes to write and to put this in action. And I would challenge you to think of a recent experience, so it's somewhat, relevant in your mind, and in which you'd like to creatively express. This could be joyful, challenging, peaceful. I just ask that it be something somewhat thought-provoking, something that you come back to, or has some sort of strong emotion tied to it, so that you're able to write a little bit easier. And try to create a poem for it. So I recommend you can use a thesaurus to help you come up with different words. That's my favorite, which I ride or die for, is Word Hippo. That one, basically, if you have like I did before, like leader, like I want to be a leader or something, if you just go on Word Hippo, it gives you all the different definitions and ways you could take it. So that's a good way to kind of give you a good brainstorm of different definitions and associated kind of values for that. And yeah, I try and find a line or a word that evokes the emotion from that moment or experience to begin with, and go from there. So I'll walk around, help you guys brainstorm a little bit. I did put, if any of you don't know what to do, here's the structure for a haiku. This is a really easy kind of short poem. You just have to look at the syllables, and if anyone doesn't know, a syllable is like the consonant sound but then a word. So like continue is 3 syllables, continue, and that's how so line 1, that's why it's a pretty short poem, because it's basically like continue this way. That would be your first line, 5 syllables. And then you just repeat that for the rhyme scheme of 5-7-5. And yeah, so I'll leave this up there for those who might want to try the haiku, But definitely there's so many different forms of poetry, so I would also encourage you to step outside the structure and try to just like make a poem too. And I left a quote up there: reality only reveals itself when it's illuminated by poetry, to kind of hit home the greatness of poetry. But yeah, I'll pop the music on, and then we'll write for 10-ish minutes, and then we'll come back together and kind of talk about it.
Anyone wants to snap while they're journaling?
All right. Yeah. Oop. No, you're good.
Great. That's like the most salad I see.
All right. Okay. So, oop. All right. Now this one's. I think this one's not.
Hi. Sorry.
That's all right. And, oh, God, sorry, you're right behind me. And I just like, there was one person I didn't hear his poem from. So I'd like to hear your poem, and then maybe we're gonna like, if you're comfortable, and then we're gonna run into the questions.
All right, it's a bit long. I wrote about getting an internship last summer.
Okay.
So the premise is that I was looking at a very accredited form or like internship between like engineers and a few others, because they take international students and also domestic students. About 5,000 applications come in, 200 get picked.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to get a recommendation, and so I had to DM somebody to get it, and I didn't know anyhow. Just that he was Hispanic, so I wrote about that.
Gotcha.
I said, as I set my sights on high, I sent a message with high hopes crumbling. I was seeking a recommendation, but didn't have a connection. So I shot in the dark, looking for a sport. Asked a random person at JG for her connection. We ended up having a conversation, and in the end, I landed the internship.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that's like, I think a very common experience for a lot of the people, like students and probably, peers right now, of, reaching out to someone that has the power of destiny for you, but they don't really, they don't owe anything to you. So you're kind of like, I could sense the hesitation of, I'm really hopeful for this, but kind of cautiously optimistic. That's like the vibes I was getting from the first part. And then the very like curt, strong statements of, I reached out, I got the internship, shows the like instilled confidence once that optimism was rewarded and you were able to receive that. So, yay, I love that you broke away from the haiku structure, although I did read some beautiful haikus from everyone here. And I appreciate you all for, doing the most and trying to, being open to this process of creation. Does anyone who wrote their poem want to share with the group at all? Sure.
What I've been writing about is I've been working on finding short ways of brain injury on inflammable injuries. So I wrote a little, so TBI, or this, TBI stands for traumatic brain injury. So it's a haiku. TBI result, left forearm spasticity, image of no.
What did anyone take away, like from her poem? Or what did you hear from it?
Apologize real quickly. Your computer just has to charge for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Basically, they're competing resources for it.
Oh,
at the moment.
gotcha. Okay.
So we just have to wait for it to
But
get
she
charged
shared
before
and
we
then
can
she.
Okay.
do that.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, I'll just leave it for I just really need the final slide. I have my questions in my notebook. All right, thanks.
It also shows like official responses of what happened after. So, needs to be different.
All right. What was being shared back there? Share with the class.
I was saying it gives you a visual reference of what ends up happening after TBI, so it paints a good picture of what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was equally interesting. Yeah, I was telling her, I pictured myself in a doctor's office, like very curt technical terms that I don't really know, but it was almost like a confused uncertainty where you're just, there's statements and it's like, I want more information, but there's no more to take. So, yeah. Thanks for sharing your guys' examples. And excuse the technical difficulties, but it's okay. We're just doing group think, pair, share now. But I want to start off with, what were some new ideas you guys were able to take from writing these poems about the situation? You can be specific or non-specific to your case. I'd just love to hear what were the kind of branches that you were able to get from this exercise. Yeah, I'm looking at you.
I feel like by reading the poem, I was able to understand my feelings more, feelings that I wasn't really aware of. If that makes any sense?
Mm-hmm. Some like subconscious, just like understandings of how you're showing up and, perceiving the situations you're in. Definitely. Yeah, Steph.
Kind of same thing to piggyback off what she said. I set out to write something that was like joyful and cheerful and like excited for an adventure. What I ended up with was, I'm super scared. I need to talk about my fear and doubt. So yeah, same thing. It like brought me to more of a deeper understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty of when you kind of start the process, you can have an idea of where you're at. Like you might have been like, oh yeah, like I'm super confident, I'm gonna start my business, like hell yeah, I'm at startup week. But deep down, like you are scared, and it's because it's a scary thing. But it's through reflecting and actually engaging with those fears and not shying away from them, that's what make them overcomable and you're able to go, yeah. I know that's not a word, but from the wordsmith, of course. But yeah, surmountable. There we go. That's what makes them surmountable, is when you face them and you actually process them. And yeah, now you can look at it and be like, it's not that big of a deal. Or it's a surmountable challenge. So what did this process show you guys about your creative ability? What about, you?
I think breaking it down into steps past just what I think part really allows you to like hit a new level of understanding with it. And like what I wrote down, similar to what they just said, it allows you to really like understand further.
So, do you feel like you were more creative in this process than you would be, and likewise?
I think because I knew more about the situation, I really broke it down. I was able to be more creative and really express myself.
Great. Vaughn, where do you think your head was at with your creativity?
I feel like, first of all, it's like I'm thinking back at it, like realize like what's important to me at this point in my life, and just thinking back to like there's so many ways that you can like express yourself that I never really like thought of. Because I'm like, for example, when I put my top of the color red, I just never like thought any more deeper than that. And now I'm like sitting down writing, I was like, wow, there's so much more than I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the beauty about creating these branches through the creation process, right? Is we've really like opened our minds to a new way of looking at the world and our feelings, the experiences we're in, the ideas and desires that we have about the future. All of this is only expanded when you put the lens of creativity on top of it. And just because I'm a poet nut, how does this influences your guys' perspective on like the power of poetry or literature? Or do you think that you would do this again in the future? Do you think that you would be open to, you know, writing poems to help you process things? Yeah.
I think I'll be open to it. During the process, it got me into a creative space, and that's something that I want to be in.
Yeah. I think we all just like, that's so grounding. Like, I don't know if you guys can speak to when you were just had that 15 or so minutes to write, but you know, letting your mind just wander is something that as adults, we don't have as much time for anymore. So, or as young adults. So yeah, I saw you also nodding your head in the back.
Yeah, I consider using poetry in my marketing for my business. But this, that's open up a new whole idea for me. Just for a different way of marketing, specifically on social media, Instagram. So, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this today.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think that poetry is a great way to connect with people because it's inherently an emotional writing. Poets are usually kind of the tortured artist where they're very emotional people, and for better or for worse. I think, but we're all human. Like we're all emotional people, and we have lots of feelings. And you know, just I think in any creative action or any of these formats that you choose to use, think about how you can connect that groundedness from creation to that. So in our last few minutes here, sorry I might run a hedge over, I just want us to, some ideas to remember. Creative expression is an action. It's a process. As much as we can think about our creativity and, you know, desire to process and think more introspectively, nothing will happen unless we actually put pen to paper. That is kind of the magic of the combination of creative action and self-expression. Is there's an output that you will get and you will be able to see. You'll be able to see that painting, poem, or story that you end up creating. And so you got to give yourself time in order to, and you have to put time and effort into actually actively creating those outputs. And creativity is the best friend to boredom. So a lot of the times when we're bored, it's so easy in this day and age to just pick up your phone, call a friend, or like scroll on Instagram. And I challenge you like one time a week, instead of picking up your phone, just put a piece of paper in front of you or challenge yourself to do something creative with those 15 minutes instead of picking up your phone. In addition, just because you haven't doesn't mean you can't. Just because you haven't ever knit a scarf or written poetry or painted doesn't mean you can never do that in the future. I know when I first started out illustrating, I was like, my brother was the artsy one. I can't do that. I'm the business person. But you know what? It all started with one stroke, and that can for all of you guys as well. And your voice will always be the loudest. When you read other people's work, like it's very great and you can connect to it, like that Robert Frost poem. I think we all got a lot out of that. But I'm remiss to find any poem that hits the same as one that I write, and any drawing that one that I did, when you can think back to where you were in that moment and you know exactly where it was coming from. You're writing it to yourself, from yourself, and it will be so impactful. So that is one of the great outputs that you get from involving in the creating process is that you get something that is written specifically for you and it's targeted. And integrate, like as I said, creative expression into your routines. Let us make sure that we're constantly being creative and noticing those creativities in our day-to-day routines, and encourage big thinking and reflect routinely on your journey to evaluate. The more we reflect, the more we go through this creative expression process, the better off we will be in the end, and the more information and confidence and awareness we will have in ourselves. So with that, I think I'm running right on time, but thank you guys so much. If you want to connect with me at all, my LinkedIn's on the screen. If you want to look into my book Moving Through Change, which you can see up here, is full of different journaling prompts and also creative kind of tools that can help guide some of this process like we did today. So my book's on Amazon right there. And yeah, if you just want to be on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm a recent alumni, Penn State grad, so any questions, I have my door open policy. So, and if you just have any more questions about creative expression or would like to just keep in touch and get some feedback on if you were online and virtual and want to reach out, I'm here. So thank you guys so much. This is really cool.